Welcome to Revoicing the Future, a Women of NAMM podcast presented by AKG. Just as one revoices a chord, Revoicing the Future creates a completely new perspective on the invaluable notes that make up the whole. It will uplift women's voices in the music products industry, which have earned their time to be the root of the chord. Once a month, you can catch productive and valuable conversations with women working in manufacturing, retail, the nonprofit sector, music education, touring, and overall women who inspire us. Together, we can help shape the future of our industry, one interval at a time. This podcast is co-produced and edited by Natalie Morrison, Stephanie Lamond, and Julia Olson. What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Revoicing the Future. I'm your host, Natalie Morrison, and hello, Stephanie.
Hi. Thank you all for having me. Thank you, Natalie, for having me. Great to be back after a holiday week. And our New York gal got to dip her toes back in her favorite city.
I did. It was lovely. First time back since I moved out here. And now we're fully in the running for just all the events.
I know. Are you also feeling intense senioritis? It's like that time of the year between these holidays where nothing seems to matter, except I say that you now are on the Midwest trajectory.
Yeah, I'm senioritis. I don't have senioritis. I can't.
Yeah, you don't ever get to stop.
No, it's okay though.
What a privilege. I get a slight break from grad school coming up. I'm just speaking for myself over here.
But the NAMM show is coming up. Can you believe it?
It is. I can't. I will tell you that I cannot. This year has flown.
I know.
And
it's truly flown.
Yeah.
And with this being our last episode of 2024, which is wild and exciting, the next time you're going to see us is at the NAMM show.
Yes.
So we wanted to, before diving into today's really exciting and wonderful episode to help us close out the year.
It's so good.
We want to highlight the 4 events that Women of NAMM will be hosting and putting on at the show this year. So you all should take out your pens, pencils, mark your calendars. So this year at the NAMM show, Women of NAMM will be hosting 4 really exciting events. And starting us off Thursday, January 23rd at 10 a.m. in the Member Center is the Women of NAMM First Attendee Meetup. And this is a perfect opportunity if you are a first-time attendee of the NAMM show to come and network and meet other people who are attending the show for the first time to really help build and find your community within the show, because we know the show can be really overwhelming. You want to make sure that you have your people that you can go from session to session and just see a familiar face as you're walking through the show floor. So I highly recommend it. There are women who have attended before who do like to come as well to help create some more familiar faces. But really, if you are a first attendee, this is a can't miss event.
This is the best. This is the perfect opportunity if you're a first-time attendee to network, meet other people. The show can be such a giant thing to navigate on your own. This way you don't have to and you can make friends.
Later that afternoon, Thursday at 1 p.m. is the Women of NAMM's deep dive.
Woo-hoo.
They're doing their first live deep dive at the NAMM show titled Wonder Woman, The Real Behind the Ideal. And this is presented by Kate Burgess, the CEO and owner of Elevate 97, to explore the journey of authentic leadership and how embracing our real selves makes us stronger, more impactful leaders. While women in leadership are also called Wonder Women, the true wonder lies in how we navigate the real, not just the ideal.
What a good little bite there, right? That's good. That's good writing. 3 cheers.
So be sure to show up for that as well, because that's an exciting first event for the deep dive series.
Yeah, for sure. And what a good concept. I'm excited for that. Cool. And then rolling right along on Friday, January 24th at 1 p.m. in the Member Center, we are presenting our session for this year, Revoicing the Future, and it is building toolkits for success in the music industry. What is that stuff, you may ask? I'll tell you. Every job needs a toolkit built for its unique day-to-day. So depending on yours, this could include everything from a strong network and your favorite project management software, or say spare strings, a capo, and your favorite pair of comfy shoes. So Everybody needs something different. Join Women of NAMM's Revoicing the Future podcast, us, for this interactive session as your hosts, Natalie, Julia, and I dive into our own toolkits, invite the audience to explore and build theirs. Sharing will be encouraged, and work together to envision an industry-wide toolkit for collective success in music. So all women identifying, gender expansive, and allied folks are welcome. This is going to be a really tangible, exciting session that, Nat, you were saying earlier, sprung from a lot of our conversations this year about these nuggets of wisdom.
As we were thinking and dreaming up what this session was going to be for this year, a lot of this stemmed from some of the conversations that we've had with our interviews this year and the episodes that we've published, and taking those little pieces of knowledge that we've learned from all of our guests this year and kind of bringing that to life in this session. So we're really excited about it, and we hope that you'll join us.
There's so many things that are very unique to different roles. And so we're going to be hoping to turn that lens on the individual, helping equip everybody to know what they need intentionally to be successful, but then looking at the macro. So you were saying you've talked to a lot of people about that. And I love that concept. What we need as women to succeed collectively, the kind of community gathering aspect.
Yeah. So the community gathering aspect is something that I got really excited for this. So I reached out to several women in the industry, just asking them, what do you need in your toolkit? What do you think women need in their toolkit to grow and be successful in this industry? And we're excited to just kind of explore what all of that looks like. And we've just seen through conversations this year in our interviews on what those ideas are. So just bringing it to life.
It's going to be fun.
Join us. Exciting.
We like to make you laugh too. It's a good time. So we'll see you hopefully at 1 p.m. in the Member Center again. That is Friday, January 24th. And then to bring it on home, that Friday evening at 7 p.m., Women of NAMM's reception will be happening in the Hilton California Ballroom C. And so we'll see you all there. That's going to be a lovely evening. And then we'll kick us off into Saturday with a bunch of new friends, a bunch of intention and excitement about how to be authentic in our careers, what we need to succeed, and then we can gather it all up with the rest of the day is the NAMM show. So I'm excited to see you all.
I'm excited too. Yay. It's going to be so fun. Be sure to come up and say hi to us.
Yeah,
we want to meet all of you so much. Now, with that said, we are so excited to close out 2024 with this really fruitful, much needed conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And we are speaking with Dr. Kristal Walker, who is the Vice President of Employee Wellbeing at Sweetwater, which is an incredible title, first and foremost. I think Stephanie and I, when we did this episode and we recorded this interview, we were just truly in awe of what
a good way to put it.
Kristal is bringing to the table. And I'm calling her Kristal in this manner because it just felt like we were talking to a friend and someone who is just incredibly knowledgeable about what it means to be an employee for a company, and just how her career has been nonlinear. Her thoughts on employee wellness within music, why DE&I is important long-term company culture discussions, not just a fad, and her vision for really how she implements these ideas and women's leadership development at Sweetwater, and how other companies can invest in their employees in this holistic manner. So it's a really fruitful, dives deep into just some of these core topics that we've been seeing and hearing and reading about. And I'm just really excited for you all to hear it.
Yeah, she so was. And it's just such a clear, really wonderful vision for how we can all be better in our work and be better for our people at work in our companies. So yeah, I can't wait for everybody to listen to this and learn so much from Dr. Walker. Very, very exciting.
Now, with that said, we can't wait to see you all at the NAMM show.
Woo-hoo.
Be sure to mark your calendars. Happy holidays, happy new year. And from all of us at Revoicing the Future, thank you for your continuous listenership and support.
Yes, and enjoy some cozy time with Dr. Walker at the next bit, some wisdom as we look into the new year. We'll see you at NAMM.
And we'll see you at NAMM. Bye. Dr. Kristal Walker, thank you so much for joining Revoicing the Future. We are truly, really excited to have you on the podcast.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. This is pretty exciting and a cool way to spend my Friday afternoon.
Yes, we love it.
I'm just already happier than, not that I wasn't happy, but it has elevated the day from its previous state. So grateful.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it.
So our listeners always gain so much from hearing everyone's unique career trajectory. So would you tell us your career story and how you ended up at Sweetwater?
Absolutely. So I'll take you a sort of a short, long way around the block. I like to joke and say I took the long way around the block because I did not graduate with my graduating class when I was 18. I actually spent my senior year in high school carrying my eldest son. I ended up dropping out of high school at 18 and went back to get my high school diploma at 21 and 23, graduated with my bachelor's, 24, my master's, and 31. By the time I was 31, I had earned my doctorate degree. And so my early career years were pretty colorful, I like to say. I learned a lot. I learned a lot by way of the School of Hard Knocks. I knew that I was responsible for a child, so life had become really real for me. And so I had started my very first real professional job. I was a receptionist for a finance company in Redondo Beach. And that opportunity led to a couple of other executive assistant type roles. And then I landed a role as a development assistant in a property management firm and landed a role as an assistant property manager. Then I got a taste of being able to teach as an adjunct professor at my alma mater, which was super exciting. And I just love the ability to teach. And so I ended up shifting my career from corporate administration to higher ed. Love being able to teach non-traditional age adult learners, people who actually entered into the classroom with life experience. I felt like a lot of their experiences aligned with mine. It was super intimidating at first because I was young in my mid-20s teaching. The average student in my class was somewhere around 45-ish. And so it was kind of intimidating being a subject matter expert and teaching people who had more life experience than I had. But usually by the time the semesters were over, the level of friendship and bonding and relationships and community that was built between myself and the learners in the classrooms was just amazing. Many of the folks that I've taught who were pursuing graduate and undergraduate degrees at that time, we still have a pretty good working relationship. So that's been pretty exciting. So I did that for about 10 years. And then I was really on the fence. Do I want to continue teaching? I love teaching and training. I actually happened to work at 2 universities that didn't have a tenure track system. And I got tired of negotiating contracts. My family was expanding. And so I had to determine, do I give up my autonomy of my schedule and my freedom to go and work a full-time 40-hour gig somewhere, and then ended up getting an opportunity to blend the best of both worlds when I took on the role as a corporate trainer for a nonprofit organization. And that was really, really exciting because it did allow me to blend my passion for teaching and training and learning with my corporate experience. So that gelled well. As a corporate trainer, I had an opportunity to do a lot of leadership development training. I was actually hired on working with another music giant, and I served as their director of organizational development for a couple of years. Super excited about that. Learned really about the music instrument industry. And it was pretty exciting to understand the business acumen around how music instruments are created, manufactured in, from a private label perspective. But more importantly, working with the leaders who were responsible for managing these businesses. So in that organization, I had an opportunity to build some multi-level leadership development programs, learned a lot about employee engagement and performance management and all of the things that would help a leader be really impactful in their role. Decided I was going to move on. I actually had a 3-hour commute each way. So I decided this is not going to be sustainable long term.
Oh, no.
And so I needed to make some hard decisions and walk away from that particular gig. And so I had an opportunity to be a training manager for a university here in Las Vegas while I built my consulting firm alongside, where I did a lot of training around bias training, diversity and inclusion training, leadership development training, talent management, all of those things. Did that for about a year and a half, 2 years almost. Built a nice clientele, loved being able to work with the diverse client base who range from a startup to a mid-sized organization that just wanted their people operations to work functionally. And then I got a LinkedIn message from Sweetwater inviting me to be a part of an informal conversation around a brand new role, an inaugural role for a vice president of employee wellbeing. That was back in October of 2020. And one conversation led to a plane ride to visit the corporate location in Fort Wayne, Indiana. I had an opportunity to meet with Chuck Surak and John Hopkins at the time, who were leading the organization, and I had an opportunity to share their vision. And I was just compelled learning Chuck's story, listening to how he built a brand from scratch out of his home and out of his van. That was pretty appealing to me. And I think by the time I left that conversation, I went in super skeptical, like, I'm not moving to Broadway. I love it where I am. I love the client base that I've built, to leaving there thinking like, man, I got to be a part of this somehow. And so one thing led to another, and here it is. Next month will be 4 years since I've been with Sweetwater.
Wow.
It's been a pretty exciting journey. I've had an opportunity to learn a lot, build some training programs for the teams there, and partner with the leaders there to just think about the overall cultural vision and strategy for the company. And it's been an exciting ride.
Literally like a roller coaster. Gotta like take a moment and soak that up for a second.
It has. I told you from the jump it was going to be a little bit colorful, but that's how I landed here.
Honestly, most stories aren't colorful. I think it's almost rare when they are not. Those people were like, okay, great. You had a normal, straightforward trajectory. Cool. Great for you. But
right.
I don't know many people that were like that. Back on that too, for the common threads, what were you teaching when you were teaching too? Was there a common thread with that? And then going into the leadership development, what specifically were you teaching?
So it actually pretty interesting. Thanks for asking that question. It started out with me teaching some workshops around preparing a resume and job seeking, interview, preparing for jobs. And I got so much positive feedback that the campus director at the school said, hey, we'd love you to come in and teach some of our resident courses.
Yeah.
And so the program, the major was actually human services, which oftentimes gets confused with human resources.
Mm-hmm.
Human services is actually more geared around nonprofit work, which I thought at that time is the direction that I'd be going into. And so I had an opportunity to teach a lot of their resident courses. I taught freshman composition. At the time that I was teaching, I was also pursuing my doctorate degree, and my major was in management and organizational leadership. So I had an opportunity to teach some organizational leadership classes. I taught some graduate and undergraduate project research. So students would come in, they'd identify a problem within the community that they wanted to address from a nonprofit perspective. And then I worked with that group of students for about 16 months to sort of nurture their project from beginning to end. And then they presented to the campus leadership, and that was a part of their graduation capstone presentation. It was pretty exciting.
Oh, it's so cool.
Sometimes we earn a degree and we don't end up working in the area.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's been a little bit of that. And so for me, I have to be intentional where I find ways to say, hey, remember, you learned that. Remember, you went to school, you got all that theoretical framework, all that work. Now, here's an opportunity for you to actually put it into practice here. And so that's been a part of the journey. And I think from there, I actually have gained a huge passion for curriculum design development.
I love that.
My overall goal is just to help people be better. I learned a lot by way of trial and error. And so I think oftentimes throughout my journey, people would tell me what was important, but they didn't necessarily tell me how to accomplish the thing or how to do the thing. And so I've spent a lot of my life's work with learning how to perfect the how, so I can help other people overcome hurdles that they may have had to or would have had to address had someone not been available to teach them how.
Oh my God, I love that so much.
Yeah. Oh gosh. I'm fresh out of my ethics and values in clinical counseling class. So it's reminding me so much of that. That's so powerful that when we can distill our values down, right, to the kernel, which is just helping people be better and grow and be good. Like, as long as everything is coming back to that, that's your guiding force. And then everything will trickle out from there. And that's so beautiful. And in that vein, can you explain the nuance between that human services and then human resources? Like, if someone is trying to decide what is that path for them, if they're kind of at that juncture, how would you explain the nuance between those two kind of buckets? I know it's nonprofit and for-profit, but in terms of what you're doing there, what does that look like?
Absolutely. And that is one of the areas that I think tend to cause a lot of confusion because they're both dealing with people.
Yeah.
I like to think, you kind of alluded to it a little bit, Steph, where the human services work is more geared around nonprofit, charitable, civic engagement type activity.
Truly service.
So, like, if I'm working in just throw some random human services organizations like the Department of Children's Services or the Department of Family Affairs or
Mhm.
Department of Veterans Affairs, all of that is like human services related work is usually governed by some sort of formal structure in that capacity where you're actually pouring out from a charitable perspective and giving out, serving, or a lot of people associate human services with ministry related type work or that sort of life's passion type work, mission based. I want to serve, I want to be able to support people along their individual journeys and whatever specific challenges that they may have had to navigate. Human resources, more on the other end, we tend to hear that within the walls of an organization. That's the function that lives within an organization that tends to take care of the people matters related to the business. Think about like the life cycle of the employee. Everything from sourcing employees to come in and work for the organization to making sure that they have a great onboarding experience to making sure that they stay engaged with the work. You don't want to go out of your way to recruit top talent and then not be able to keep them. You got to be able to keep them engaged. And when employees are moving from one team to the next, how do you manage that internal movement process? When employees decide to leave the company, how do you manage that process so that there's a mutual win for
Mhm.
both parties, the employee leaving and the company overall? So I like to think human resources is more around managing the employee life cycle within the walls of an actual organization. Human services is more of doing the work to help support the holistic person overall in whatever capacity that they may find themselves in at work. Now, here's the tricky part. There are human resources organizations within
Yeah.
human services
Yeah.
organizations.
Yeah.
I think if I had to differentiate it in that way, it would be like that. You think about who's doing the actual functional work of managing the people who work for an organization versus who's serving the people that may or may not even be within the organization.
I wonder if an example within the music space would be a music cares for the human services aspect,
For
because
sure.
that's what they do is they serve the person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They serve musicians. Yep. Yeah. And that's so funny. I actually have a group of friends that are hosting the National Black Music Coalition. They are hosting an event tomorrow in Chicago where the entire event is geared around caring for the well being of musicians. And so they do that usually once a quarter, maybe twice a year. This initiative was actually birthed out of COVID, specifically for African American musicians who just needed an outlet. I think while they're playing and while they're gigging, life is lifing still, right? So still
Mhm.
dealing with everything from loss to grief to
Mhm.
For
sickness and
sure.
just managing their own personal well-being. So that's a great example of what a human services initiative might look like in the world of music.
I love that.
And on that, it occurs to me as you're saying this, it sounds like your role now at Sweetwater is very much human resources, but informed by the spirit of your human services background because you're doing the human resources work, but you're also expanding it. You're kind of blazing a new trail in music products, it seems, because that's what I've seen more in, because I've dipped a toe into the tech world and my husband's in that and stuff. There's all these other organizations and companies that you navigated through. And it seems like you're kind of bringing that larger perspective of what is there to a music products company that is very open to expanding in that direction and stuff too. So it's cool to see the boundaries stretch a little bit in ways that are still, doing what you need to do, but taking the best of both.
You just made me think, Stephanie. It's a full circle moment for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I think stepping out of it for a moment, I'm in the work, I'm doing the work all the time. And then to be able to reflect on my career and where I started, this really is a full circle moment for
It's
me.
everything.
Oh.
Oh, so cool. So on that, can you tell us about your job now? What are your tasks? Because I think probably most people like, what does the vice president of employee well-being do? Like, what have you built into that role? And what does that day-to-day look like? What are your tasks and projects and all of that?
Well, pretty interesting, and thanks for asking. So let me just start out by saying prior to me even coming to Sweetwater, Sweetwater has always had a passion for taking care of employees. That's been Chuck's
Yeah.
vision from day one. And I think one of the things that was super impressive for me when I interviewed with him at that time, he said, you know what? I don't see our company as having 2,000 employees. I see it as me being responsible for 2,000 families.
Oh.
Oh, that's good leadership. Oh,
That's very different.
Yeah.
That hit different. And when I heard that, it was like, whoa, okay, I get it. It's so much bigger than what the eye typically can see. You see an organization with a specific employee population size, but it's different when like this has been your baby, you owned it, you've nurtured it, and now it's grown, it's expanded, and now you have all of these
Mhm.
families that are being blessed by what you've created and they're benefiting from what you have to offer. So I want to just lead in by saying that Sweetwater already had a very nurturing, family centered culture already.
Yeah.
It just grew from Chuck's vision back in 1979 to what it is today.
Mm.
He already had built in a medical clinic on site for
So,
employees.
so right.
Already
So
had a
cool.
spa built in on site for employees. So, like when we say Sweetwater is like the Disneyland for musicians,
It really
it really
is.
is.
It's such a
Already had
revolutionary, like holistic model. It's amazing.
already had a racquetball club, already had concerts and different things like that that happened. My job really was to come on and enhance and optimize what we already had and
Mm.
identify gaps in those services and add on other tangible things that employees can do at the time of need. So, yes, we already had all of these wonderful resources in place. And then at the time that I was hired, we also hired our first on site counselor,
Mm.
especially in a post George Floyd and in a COVID environment and a crazy political climate in 2020, for which I came on board, you know, what better way to add to the suite of well-being offerings than having on-site counselors so that if employees needed
Yes.
to talk to someone amidst their workday, they have that opportunity to do so. They have someone right
Mhm.
here on campus who could just be an outlet for them to be able to just share real quick. This thing is bothering me right
Yeah.
now in this moment. I want to go back to being productive and do productive work, but I'm stuck right now and in the middle of my day. And so rather than
Mhm.
having to schedule an appointment and wait until you can be seen by a behavior health specialist and all of those things that come with our benefit package, which is still available for employees, we wanted to make it a little bit more of a concierge white glove experience where we can provide that for our employees.
So accessible.
And so we did. And so we have seen since the inception of our on site counseling service, not only do we have an on site counselor, we also have two specific clinician specialists who come on site who work with our employees. We have an addictions counselor who comes on site once a month to meet with our employees
Wow.
who need that
Wow.
particular service. We also have another vet and a clinician in the therapy space who comes on to talk about like some of the very hard things that employees are struggling with their families or just personally. We also have taken it a step further and we built out a five-fold phase around well-being. So not only we are concerned about our employees' mental health, we're concerned about their physical health, we're concerned about their financial health, we're concerned about their social health and their ability to meet and create connections, especially with so many people relocating to Fort Wayne to work for Sweetwater. We're also concerned about their professional health, their ability to continue to learn, grow, and develop as they are serving customers. And so, in addition to the counselors, we have partnerships with different financial institutions locally and around the nation where we can actually invite our employees to have one-on-one counseling sessions to talk through their personal financial situation. So if someone just needs some short-term financial planning, hey, I've never budgeted before. I need to understand how to put together a budget. Or, you know what, I'm in this season of my life where I need to do
Mhm.
credit repair. I love to talk with a financial specialist who can help me get an understanding of where I am and where I need to be. Or, you know what, maybe my budget is good, maybe my credit is good, but now I want to get into investing. So I'm more concerned about long term financial health. And so we have our 401k providers come on campus once a month, and employees have an opportunity to
Mm.
meet with them once a month and talk about investment planning and estate planning and all of those things. And we realize when one of those five areas is out of balance, it ultimately impacts your overall well being. So we try to make services available that are both preventative as
Mhm.
well as available at the time of need for employees to take advantage of. Of course, we have the employee assistance program where employees can tap in 24/7, 365 if they have a specific need that they're looking to address. We also have partnerships with local nonprofit organizations, one in particular called Remedy Live. I actually served as a board member for Remedy Live. So, Remedy Live is a really good resource. It's a text based, it's an anonymous text-based resource that anyone, not just employees of Sweetwater, but anyone can text 494949. You've heard of the term paramedic if you find yourself having to need those emergency services. Well, Remedy Lives calls their partners soul medics. And so if you have a need right in the moment, 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, again, you can text 494949 and you'll reach a soul medic who will respond to you in real time. And I have been trained to help navigate trauma, high level crisis type situations. We're aware that they all exist. And despite our ability to play instruments and to serve customers who play instruments, life is still happening all around us. And so we just want to make sure that as we take care of customers, we're also taking care of our employees.
And you do a really powerful job of explaining that that ultimately too is for the best interest of the business
Yeah.
too. It's absolutely necessary for growth and a strong organization.
Oh, yeah.
Good to prove the need. In this too, serving folks. So now that you've been in other corners of business, music before this as well, and now in this, is there anything you found unique about the music space in terms of human resources as you're serving these folks? Or is there any trend you're seeing in what people need in music versus outside of it? Or is it kind of universal of what you've seen people coming up with needing assistance with? You know, the 5 universal things are quite universal, but is there anything unique you've found to the music products industry now that you're doing this work in there?
I would say that there's a lot of alignment with just anyone who needs specific well-being care.
Yeah.
But I think recently too, we've been paying attention to like some of the themes around, like we never poke into anyone's private business. So anyone who decides to meet with one of our counselors, we really don't know what the conversations are like. One of the things that we do ask our therapists to record are what are the themes?
Mm.
And the themes for the conversations are important so that we can make sure that we have resources available to support even beyond their time with the actual counselor. And I think one of the themes that I've seen, not just at Sweetwater, but just in the music instrument industry in general, is there's a lot of neurodiversity issues that are starting to come to the forefront now that we've been welcoming this conversation around diversity and inclusion. There's a lot of neurodiversity challenges that I think people experience. Like you may have a genius when it comes to playing music or recording music or singing or whatever the output is for how you use the musical instrument. But you also have a neurodiversity issue like being dyslexic, right? That's something that you may have to navigate, or perhaps a high functioning autistic ability is something that you're challenged with. So I think what we're seeing is, again, not just within our organization, but just across the industry as we have conversations, even with our well-being broker or healthcare broker who helps us ensure that we have the right services available. We are also looking at being mindful of what was once something that I would like to consider one under the iceberg areas that people just need help in general. So I don't want to classify it as just being in the music instrument business, but we are in a position where we're just being a little bit more focused to people who may be sensitive to or have neurodiversity issues that we could support them in just by a simple accommodation. You know, maybe I am sensitive to a lot of movement or light. And so part of that may be from a human resources perspective. Well, let us get you a workstation set up where you can have a little bit of a covering. Or maybe your workstation setup needs to be designed in a way for you to navigate if you're going to be sitting most of the day. Right. And so it's things like that that we're trying to be a little bit more intentional about so that we can serve the whole person so that they can in turn serve the customers that we serve.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I want to shift the conversation a little bit over to learning about the Women's Career Development Program
Yes.
at Sweetwater. Can you talk a little bit about how that started and what that entails?
Yes. I would say probably since I came, and we all know, I don't think it's a secret at all. The music instrument industry in general is just heavily male dominated. Like it's no secret at all.
Yes.
It's why we're here.
That's exactly why we're here. One of the things that we wanted to be intentional about at Sweetwater is making sure that despite that being the current state, we do recognize that there is a full generation of female musicians, female artists, female producers, and audio engineers who are growing in this space and who've actually been in this space. It's not that they're just growing out, they've been here. Now we're just a little bit more at liberty to talk about who they are and what they need. And so one of the things that we've committed to at Sweetwater was we recognize the gender disparities in the industry, but we want to commit to putting our arms around women and minorities in the music instrument retail space so that, yeah, despite there being not necessarily the right balance in terms of gender parity, but there is the right care at Sweetwater. And so we heard by way of our annual employee engagement survey, different focus groups, like what do career development opportunities look like for me as a woman here in the male dominated industry? How do I navigate space being the only woman or being one of few or feeling like I'm in environments where there's just a lot of sexism and a lot of gender based roles, the men tend to take on more of the leadership roles. How do I navigate that? And so we did not want to get into a space where we started creating all of these individual ERG groups, employee resource groups, or affinity groups, because in past life and past experiences, I've seen them work really well when they're really structured. But when they're not, I can see them be very bureaucratic and they can actually do more harm than good. So what we decided was rather than starting an employee resource group focused on women, why not just create a program, a career development program for our high potential performing women, as well as those who are in leadership, so that they have a space and a community for them to be able to thrive while they're here? Now, part of that was also leaning in to understand how we define leadership. Like, we don't believe that there's a man leader and a woman leader. Like, no, there's a leader. You just may happen to be a man or a woman, but we expect the same core qualities and characteristics regardless of your gender. And so we decided we wanted to also give the women at Sweetwater a safe space for them to be able to talk about some of the challenges that they've had to navigate. Biases certainly exist when you're operating in a predominantly male oriented space. Stereotypes do exist. Sexist language exists. Like, we're not oblivious that this happens, even in the best of the organizations. But what we wanted to do was put together a group that wasn't about a session where we're just, pardon my language, bitching all day long about what's not working for us or crying out about all of the barriers. No, we wanted to be able to shift the narrative to say, these aren't necessarily barriers, but these can actually be bridges if we learned how to communicate what the real challenges were. Now, I bring this up because oftentimes, and not just at Sweetwater, but I work with lots of young women who find themselves at a crossroad in their career. And one of the first things that they do is tend to blame men for not being able to know what their career path is. I had a young woman that I was working with before, and she came to me and she goes, I'm just so upset. I just met with my supervisor and I asked about my career path and he didn't have one and I'm just angry. And we had the kind of relationship where I just looked at her and I said, well, you know what? I'm angry at you. And she was shocked, like, oh my God, like, what? What did I do? I said, because why are you putting that kind of power in that person's hand?
No, you have the power.
Why are you allowing that person to dictate where you go in your career? That's a conversation that you should be having already with yourself, part of your own personal and professional development. And God willing, if this is the person that's going to help you get there, then great. It's a perfect alignment. But I don't think it's fair for you to put that kind of pressure on this man, this person, to have your whole career trajectory in his hands while he is still trying to climb the ladder. That's just not fair. It's not fair. And you're going to continue to be upset, whether it's a man, a woman, or whoever. If you don't first know what your vision is, you're always going to be pushing somebody else's. And so you have to take a moment to step back and say, okay, what do you need to do? What do you want to do? Where do your values and your passion align that can somehow turn into a profitable 40-hour plus work week for you that doesn't feel like work? And that's not up to that person to make that determination. So one of the things that I respected about the women in our women's career development program is they kind of already knew who they were. They were already in leadership roles. They were already mastering their craft, being subject matter experts in what they wanted to do. Here it is. We just need a community to know, like, hey, when I'm having this really hard day, when I feel like, I'm experiencing some biases as a result of somebody else's blind spot, is it just me or is it, like, where's my community if I'm having a hard moment? How do I exercise emotional and cultural intelligence in a male dominated space? Right. And so that's really the purpose of this group, for us to be able to, one, build community, for us to be able to identify our own blind spots, for us to be able to not hold other people accountable for our vision and for our destiny, but how do we show up badass, who we are, confident, assertive, without being seen as crazy women who just are whining all the time. No, 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 no. We want to be heard. We want to be welcome. We want to be valued and supported. And we're willing to carry our weight at the same time.
This just reminded me, I was listening to Harvard Business Review's Women at Work podcast. And a couple weeks ago, they had an episode dedicated around it's been ingrained in our brains that women are assertive, but can't be warm and aren't warm, but you can have both.
Yeah.
And it was it was one of those moments of just, oh, wow. Yeah, that's very true. Like we can be assertive and still be warm and be empathic and have the care for getting stuff done and moving the way. It doesn't have to be two separate entities.
We do it all the time. We manage our homes.
Yeah.
I tell people all the time, I learned leadership at home with my children. Right? I got personalities I got to work through. I got accountability I need to try to set up. And really, when it's done right, it's the same whether I'm managing or I'm leading people in my house or the White House. It's the same thing, same core responsibilities. Obviously, different contemporary challenges and folks and situations that you'll be working with, but it really is the same thing. And so when you have to separate, Natalie, to your point, that's when it becomes challenging because you're trying to be two people and you end up showing up as an imposter.
Yeah. It occurs to me about like just negotiating power.
Yeah.
I love how you've spoken before, right? Bringing your whole self into work and how you just expressed that. It's vital for figuring out what that career will be. But in that is how do I, as I grow in that career, wield power in the way that's authentic to me? And I love how you express that because we don't have a ton of models at the leadership role, but we have so many models for that in homes, in other areas that we can look to where women have been leading and wielding power in this way.
That's right.
And it's just getting more creative in the way that we look to our examples and models and then to each other in programs like this. That's so powerful.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, the women in our initial call, we call this our beta year, where we were just kind of bringing some topics to the forefront. And next year, when we go live and we welcome new women into the program that are part of the organization, supervising in whatever capacity, I mean, the women who make up this original cohort are just brilliant women who work in marketing, who work in IT, who work in our distribution center, supply chain operation, who work in our HR team, our campus operations team. Like the wealth of knowledge and confidence that's in that room is just incredible when it comes to what we can do for an organization, right? If you take all of our brain power out of the organization, doesn't mean that the organization won't thrive, right? Because once upon a time, we weren't there. But we also see our footprint on the organization. We also see the work that we've done and the contributions that we've made and the value that we've added. And so it's a beautiful thing when you do create a space for people to be able to blossom in their own way.
I love that. So you were on the She Rocks mental health and music panel, and you mentioned a recent McKinsey report about women in business and the powerful concept that they discovered of the broken rung. Can you explain what that idea is and how it relates to women's career development?
Sure. So you may have heard, and I think what's more popular is the glass ceiling. You've heard of that theory where a woman gets in leadership, but it's only so far that she can go, or it appears that she has a space to go, but there's this barrier that's preventing her to excel. Well, the broken rung is the metaphor to describe a woman's inability to even make the first step to leadership. And so part of what the report revealed was part of the reason why you see such gender disparities when it comes to women in leadership in organizations is because they aren't even getting that first time at leading or supervising. Like the actual roadmap to get in leadership or whatever the career path to get into leadership is being blocked. That's what researchers describe as the broken rung. And so not only do you have this glass ceiling effect, but you don't even have a pipeline to ensure that women are entering into leadership roles. So that's what that particular research was about.
Has the leadership development program help to address some of that to help make it easier for women to enter that leadership role or that supervisor role?
I think it will. And the reason why I say it will is because we started out with this original beta cohort, just making sure that we identified existing women leaders
Mm.
because we wanted to understand what their challenges were. What were some of the challenges, not just at Sweetwater, but what were some of the challenges that they had entering into a role? And that we hope that with the conclusion and the build out of this program, us having that experience and then knowing what it's like to experience those stereotypes and all of the crappy stuff that we have to experience to get into the role in the first place. Our hope is that now we can serve as the advocates for other women. So now we are the guardians to where a broken rung doesn't even exist in areas of the business where we are because we have committed to being the ally and the advocate to help other women get into that space or to be the voices at the table that need to speak up when there are some blind spots. So to actually get into the program now, you have to be nominated by another woman.
Mm.
Like first round for us to be able to get there, you have to be nominated by someone else who's gone through the program. Obviously, we want your manager to approve and speak into it as well. But that's our commitment to each other, to the program, and to making sure that this wasn't just a feel good one time experience. No, this is going to be a program that we continue to invest in. And we've already identified more than enough individuals for the 2025 cohort.
I love that. That's really exciting to
Yeah.
hear and to see that, yeah, you're in year one, you're basically gathering the knowledge and
The long game strategy of that is really
Yeah.
effective and cool.
the tools for the toolbox that you want to see grow. Exactly. Yes.
Well, and it's not reactionary, it's proactive. And that's really cool.
That's right. And we envision for 2025 some of the alumni from this year serving as mentors to those that are
Yeah.
coming in the program. We have a ladies leadership lunch on roster for next year to host. We have some of those training sections actually being designed to be a little bit more experiential. So it's not just a full 2 hours of discussion, but maybe it's an hour discussion and an hour of hands-on experience. So if we're teaching you how to dissect your leadership brand, for example, and how to put it together and be confident around how you see yourself and speak into your brand. Not only will we give you the hour to understand how to put it together, but now we're going to give you an hour to communicate it to us. And then we get to critique it in a safe and a brave space for you to be able to share out and perfect it. So now the next time you get into a space where you're having to sell an idea, or you're having to sell something that you want to bring to the table, you can do it now with confidence because you've already practiced it out loud. And guess what? Maybe your idea isn't accepted the first time around. Maybe the business need just doesn't support your idea. You still have community that you can fall back to say, hey, it's not that your idea didn't work. It's not that you aren't confident or smart or assertive on all of these things. It's just the business need has to align with the idea. We get that. We're in business all day
Mhm.
long. And so I think that's the beauty of having a program like that is because not only do you get to learn, you get to build community.
I love
So floored by how you described it. Segmenting, sometimes you need to be doing it intentionally. And so, in the spirit too of unsegmenting, reaching out in that same panel, as I was diving into that, doing my research on you, I love how you talk about that we also need to be bringing allies in it. One, as you say, the community, we're allies to each other as women in music, but we also need to be welcoming non-woman allies
Yeah.
into that. And so, do you have any thoughts to share on for those that are listening, hoping to be a good ally there, right? Like, what are some of the just top line things that you would say for people to be aware of, but then two, how we can reach out to folks and welcome allies in maybe a little better than we have? Everything is so segmented and polarized right now. And so, bridging that and being like, yes, please come. We want you to help, kind of thing,
Yeah.
making people feel welcome as allies. Just any thoughts on that? I'm so curious for your take on all of that.
Sure. So first thing, allyship is felt. I
Mm.
can't just go and say, I'm your ally, right?
Mhm.
You have to know that. You have to be able to tell me that you feel like I'm your ally, right? We can say all day long, like, oh, yeah, I'm your ally. I'm advocating for you in the rooms that you're in. No, I got to feel it. I got to know that.
Mm.
That has to be something that I have to affirm, the person who's the recipient of the allyship.
Mm.
And so that to me is what makes it real, that there's evidence to demonstrate that, yeah, I have beyond a shadow of a doubt, I know this person has my back, right? I think the second thing is I have learned that the best way for me to be an ally to not just women, but men that I've had to support is being present in the moment and understanding who they are and what they need. Right. And I don't think we do a good job just in society being present enough. There's so many different things that are grabbing at our attention from everything that we see on social media to moving. Oftentimes we're having conversation. We're thinking about our response to a question before we can even hear the rest of the question. I learned this with my 8-year-old daughter, as a matter of fact. It was about 2 years ago where I was texting. She was asking me a question about something. And finally, she stopped me and she grabbed my hand. I had my phone in my hand and I was texting. She stopped me. She goes, Mommy, you're not even listening to me. And I had to stop what I was doing because that was a moment that I was missing. It was a present moment that I was missing with my baby girl. And it
Mm.
caused me to think, how much more am I missing with my colleagues, with my family, to the people who are close to me because I'm not even here. My body is here. You see me, but my mind is somewhere off into the next text, the next email, the next project that I got to get done. I'm just not present enough. And so I think to
Mhm.
be a great ally, you have to be in tune with the people that you're working with so that you are aware of what they need, right? Sometimes people don't need more money. Sometimes people don't need more of the things that we think that they value. Sometimes they just need an ear. Sometimes they just need to know, say, you have done a phenomenal job. I need you to know, I see you. The work and the contribution that you're bringing to the team, it's amazing. We wouldn't be where we are right now had it not been for you taking that extra time to be that concerned with the details to produce such a passion project. We see it, we experience, we feel it every single day. Thank you. I don't know what it took for you to be able to deliver that sort of an output, but I just need you to know it's appreciated. I see you and I appreciate that. What can I do to give you more moments like this? How did that feel to you? Oftentimes people are just like, wow, well, I appreciate that. Thank you. I know if you tell me I'm doing a good job, I'm going to want to do it again. Not that I need those pat on the backs all the time, but every now and again, I got a little puppy. Every now and again, my puppy comes to me. She wants to be rubbed on her head and just to let me know, do you see me? I'm here right now. If she wasn't locked up right now, she'd be jumping all over my lap right now to make sure that I was present with her in the moment. But I think allyship starts with one, knowing that it's felt. It's not something that I can go around declaring, hey, I'm this person's ally.
Mhm.
No, the person has to know it and affirm it. And then you have to be present enough with them. You got to know what skills they're really good at. You got to know some of the things that they're passionate about. I think the worst thing that we can do sometimes is incentivize somebody incorrectly, right?
Mhm.
And that may look like, oh, yeah, this person's doing a great job. Just give them a promotion. Well, is that what they wanted? Maybe they just wanted a little bit more flexibility. Maybe they just wanted to be
Mhm.
recognized. So to me, that speaks to allyship more than anything.
We overcomplicate it, and what a
Yeah.
gettable, beautiful way. That's the most beautiful way I've ever heard that expressed. So, thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, and like you said, Steph, like I feel as if we search for a more complicated solution than what is actually
Or formalized or yeah.
or formalized solution than what's literally is in front of us.
Yeah. Sometimes I know, especially like when the George Floyd incident first broke out, and some of my white colleagues were asking, Crystal, what do you, I can't even imagine how you're feeling right now. What do you need right now? I said, more than anything, I just need you. Can we just talk?
Mm. Mhm.
Can we
Mm,
talk? I wasn't expecting them to have an answer to anything because what we experienced and what we saw on that day was so much bigger than the moment. We know that, right?
right.
Mhm.
But what I appreciate is you just taking the time to listen to me, to check on me. You don't have to do anything, just your ear alone. That's a simple solution. Just listen. I'm not even expecting you to carry the weight of it all. Can you
Mhm.
just be with me here in this moment? Because this is a little bit overwhelming. In the same way I would be for someone else, right? I don't necessarily have an answer. Even my adult children, when they come to me and they have an issue and they want to talk, my first response is, before you even share, do you want me to just listen? Are you looking for my advice? Tell me what you need from me in this moment so that I can make sure that I give you that. Because one, I don't want to make the problem worse. And two, I don't want to offer advice if you're not looking for that. Sometimes we just need an ear, and that's simple. It doesn't cost me anything to give you 5, 10 minutes of my time to listen to you.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so beautiful. I do that with my friends too. Like if some of my friends need to chat, like, do you want my advice or do you just want to vent to me? Because I want to make sure, because I'm very like, what's the solution? Let's
Yeah,
find a
let's get to
solution.
yeah.
But that's not what people need all the time. So it's
That's right.
good to practice putting that foot forward and really asking the question of like, what do you need
That's
from me in
exactly.
this moment?
Well, and reminding folks that that's okay. Like, I think the solution-oriented part of it is so noble too. And I think we all need to remember, or I needed this as I was learning this probably 2 weeks ago, like the therapeutic connection that you're doing is sometimes the most helpful thing you can be doing.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it is okay. That can be enough
That's
sometimes,
right.
exactly how you're saying that. So the helping inclination, it's like turning toward showing up, that evidence-based
That's right.
is sometimes all you need to do to be able to truly connect and help. Humans are beautiful sometimes.
This is a really great segue into this question, which I've been talking to Steph about this for a really long time. I've seen this conversation happening all over the internet. And then you on LinkedIn several months ago had an opinion on this.
And she sent it to me immediately. She was like, this is so brilliant. This is the best way I've seen this expressed. We need to talk to her. I was like, yes.
I'm seeing a trend where we were all gung ho about DE&I and having departments really focus on that. And you posted about viewing diversity, equity, and inclusion as more than just a fad.
Mm-hmm.
We live in this society where things come in trends and that's the conversation of the moment and then it fizzles out. But
Mm-hmm.
DE&I is more than that. So can you talk more about what inspired you to make those observations and why you see it as so important?
Absolutely. So, as I mentioned, part of my career trajectory early on was building training programs. And part of the training programs that I was asked to build was around bias training. How do you get people to understand their biases? Addressing and confronting your biases are important. And as with any training program, it's not enough to just build the training. You got to make sure it's effective, right? So, I wanted to make sure that I was partnering with organizations. We don't want to just open up Pandora's box and everybody now is fully aware of their biases and not know what to do about it, right? Because the reality is you can't completely cut off biases. It's a natural part of who we are, right? And for certain biases don't present any harm. It's just the ones that are harmful that could potentially get us in trouble. And so when 2020 hit, it was an awakening for most of America, but that does not mean that that was the start of DE&I work.
No,
In
of course
fact, there's
not.
organizations like Diversity Inc. and other organizations that have been doing this work for a really long time that even date back to the civil rights movement, the inauguration of the civil rights movement. And so there's been a lot of work already that's been done by some really great organizations that actually get awarded for doing really great work to make sure that there is a space for people from all walks of life to be themselves and to be able to fit in and to not be subject to any sort of systematic oppression in any kind of way. So when 2020 hit, it was an interesting year. It was exciting to see this movement take off and there be a little bit of exposure more around it. But what we also saw in 2020 was a lot of people who have lived experience raise their hand to say, I'm a DEI expert because this is my life.
Mm.
And so part of the folks who have been doing the work for a while realize, about a year or two from now, this is going to blow up because you got all of these people who are passionate about wanting to jump in and wanting to help based solely on their lived experience. I could have all of the lived experience in the world, but if I don't have the experience to be able to speak to a team of white male leadership, who can't relate to my experiences and I'm asking them to change what's happening within their organization, my lived experiences are only going to get me so far. At some point, they're going to want to know the data. How do we know that this is a trend? How do we know that this is impacting my business? Help me understand the blind spots that we have as an organization. So there have been organizations that's been doing this work for quite some time and doing it really well. When 2020 hit, we got all of these experts all of a sudden, but then we didn't have a lot of people who were prepared to be able to share the how to. And so when a lot of organizations jumped on the bandwagon to say, hey, we want to do this work, they threw a lot of money at it. They didn't realize the actual work that it took to unpack some of the systematic oppression and some of the things that we see happening to people who are part of marginalized communities. They didn't know that, oh, you can't just put a goal in place and think you're going to see ROI at the end of the year. DEI is a heart matter. And what you're asking people to do is change their heart, and you're asking people to change behavior. I think we all know that it takes time to shift behavior.
Yeah.
I can tell my 8-year-old not to do something. It's going to take some time for her to shift that behavior if there aren't any real accountability around that. And so it's going to take some time. What I'm excited about, though, is for those who are still interested in doing this very important work. So I think what we saw in 2020 was a lot of people sort of jumping into this fad. Now what we're starting to see is a shift in terminology. And so now people are replacing the term DEI with culture.
Oh, interesting.
And so you'll see that pop up in many more instances, initiatives just across the country. What my post was about was I hope those who are actually replacing the term DEI with culture are actually doing the work to learn what it means to be culturally intelligent and not just slapping that term on their work. And then we end up seeing another fall or disruption in this work because you have people who are ill equipped and ill prepared to engage from a culturally intelligent perspective and how they manage and interact with people.
Oh, absolutely. I think some of the concern also that people see is people are just checking a box.
Yes.
Oh, yep, here we go. Next. And that's not at all what this work is.
No, not at all. And cultural intelligence, that's actually the approach that we use at Sweetwater when we talk about DEI is because, oftentimes people will correlate innovation with DEI, and that's great, right? If you really want to drive innovation for your company, you got to be a little bit more diverse. So you bring different perspectives and all of that. The reality is, if we have DEI without cultural intelligence, what we end up having is, or diversity without cultural intelligence, you may have a Black group, a white group, an Asian group, a Hispanic group, a LGBTQ plus group. You have all these groups, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're talking to each other. Now you just got a bunch of siloed groups. What cultural intelligence does, it helps create the motivation for getting those groups to talk to each other and to work with each other. So if I am culturally intelligent about a group that I don't necessarily identify as or a representation of, I can still stand completely confident in who I am, but it's going to benefit me if I have some knowledge about who this group is. My next blessing, my next connection, my next career opportunity could be associated with this group. But if I am so focused on just me and my world, and I don't have any interest in working with people who don't look like me, who don't dance like me, who don't sing like me, who don't work like me, I'm going to miss out on life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And despite even the fatigue that we're experiencing right now, just as a country and all of the talk about DEI going away and all of that, doesn't change the fact that I'm a Black woman. It doesn't change the fact that I still am a minority in a lot of places that I show up. So the work is still important. You can call it whatever you want. It's not going to change the color of my skin or my gender or anything like that. So it's not going away from that sense because we're still here.
Beautifully put. If there are companies wanting to do more, they're committing to this, how do you recommend them starting that conversation?
I would recommend them starting a conversation with understanding what's their why. What's their personal why? Why is this work important to you? The question that I tend to ask for any big important initiative before we take it on is, what happens if we don't? So if we don't, I'll use leadership development, for example. If we don't develop leaders, what happens to our organization? What risk are we subject to if we don't develop our leaders? Okay. Things could go on as usual, but at some point, we're going to need someone who can take authority, who can help manage the business and all of that. So there's a case for leaders and leadership development. The same thing when you think about diversity, equity, and inclusion, there's a case for that. What happens if we don't? Well, at the very minimum, you will want your workforce to mirror the customers that you serve, right? So we know the music industry is full of a diverse wide range of people from all walks of life. So I think we will want that same representation to be showing up in those who have professions and careers in the music industry. And so you have to ask, what happens if we don't do this work? What opportunities could we be missing out on? And then what do you value as an organization? Because you can say you're going to do the work, but I like to say it this way. A good friend of mine said it this way: your audio has to line up with your video.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, that's so
And we can
good.
say all day long that, yeah, we do this, we're an advocate for it, but man, our talk is not aligning with our walk at all. And so I think it's important for a company to understand, hey, what are we going to stand for? What are we going to advocate for? Because even when the going gets tough and you have to stand, sometimes standing alone, you still got to stand if you're committed to whatever it is that you're standing for. And so I would say start off there. What's your why? And then once you identify your why, there's tons of resources and frameworks out here. I happen to be a fan of the cultural intelligence framework because it's an easy framework for someone to model if you are just looking to engage and be successful in cross-cultural situations. So culture for us is not limited to race, ethnicity, and identity. Like the example that I tend to use all the time. Do you ladies like tacos?
Yeah.
Would you
Yeah.
consider yourself a taco lover?
Oh, yeah.
I love tacos. I eat a taco
yeah.
every single day, right?
Mhm.
So the definition, the very basic definition of culture is it's an umbrella term to describe a way of life for a group of people who share similar interests. That's the basic
Mm.
definition of culture, right?
Yeah.
So if we all like tacos, then we can be considered a culture of taco lovers.
Mhm.
Right? You break that down even further. Some of us may prefer steak. Some of us may prefer chicken. Some of us may prefer shrimp or veggie or cheese, whatever. And now you have subcultures. Well, in my mind, that then becomes, if you use that metaphor, that scenario, that then becomes the real case for diversity because we're in culture all the time. You can't avoid culture.
Mhm.
It's around us all the time. It shows up differently all the time. You're going to experience it whether you want to or not. And so, if that is the case, why not have a framework that you can leverage to be really good at navigating cross cultures? And that's to me is where I would start.
I love it.
Amazing. Yeah. Okay. To lighten this up a little bit, and for the very last little bit, speaking of tacos, maybe we always just love to end it too with like, who is Dr. Walker outside of your work? Like, what brings you joy? What makes you happy when you aren't dedicating your life to helping others? What are you doing to help yourself outside of that?
Well, I like to do things that enhances my self-care. So sometimes that
Mm.
means sitting quietly. Sometimes that means listening to some really good music. Sometimes that may be having a glass of wine and having a really good laugh. Sometimes it may be drawing and coloring with my 8-year-old. Sometimes it may be getting a good laugh with my husband. Just anything that does not require me to be on.
Mm.
Yes.
Is what I
Being
love.
zero, just being at zero.
Just be at zero. Let me just relax. Let me just go outside and get some fresh air and just not
Yeah.
have to be on all the time. Like I like places where I can go and I can just be Crystal and I don't have to be Dr. Walker and I don't have to have all of the answers and I don't have to be the subject matter expert. I don't got to be the thought leader. I don't got to be the boss. I get to just be
Yes.
Crystal. And so I like moments like that. So
Mm.
sometimes I have those moments in restaurants, eating with some good friends and family. Sometimes I have those moments when I'm sitting quietly alone. So I think
Love it.
that's what I do when I'm not on.
I love that. Yay.
Well, Kristal, thank you so much for joining us. This was
Absolutely.
such an enlightening conversation,
Mhm.
a conversation that I think will resonate with so many of our listeners and whoever just happens to also stumble upon
Yeah.
the podcast. I just can't thank you enough for your subject matter expertise in this industry and all that you bring to music products and just human beings.
Yeah, we're so lucky to have you in it right now. It's so wonderful to just have your presence making our industry better. So we're grateful that you're a part of it.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the invitation, first of all, and for the wonderful work that you all are doing over at Revoice in the Future. This is so important work. And, don't think for a minute that the work that you're doing is not meaningful. There are people, even
Thank
if
you.
it's just for one person, that one person needed to hear, not just this episode, but any episode that you all put your hearts and minds to create. It's very important work. And we need voices like you. We need people like you to continue to do this very important work and to give people like me exposure and to be able to tell our stories. And our stories, I think, is what makes us human, what keeps us human, especially in a generation where AI seems to be taking over. AI doesn't have a story, but we do.
Yes, we do. Thank you again.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Revoicing the Future. You can subscribe to the podcast on all major streaming platforms or visit our website. Be sure to follow us on social media to stay up to date on all things Women of NAMM. This episode was co-produced and edited by Natalie Morrison, Stephanie Levant, and Julia Olson. Together, we can help shape the future of our industry, one interval at a time. See you next time.